Hi everybody, it's Magda with Jump Into Art, and today I'm going to show you how to take 2 pounds of clay and turn it into a vase, which when you paint it and return it to us, we'll fire it for you, and then we'll dip it in a glaze, and then we'll fire it again, and then it'll turn into this, and when you get it back, it'll come with flowers in it. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so here I am with and look at all these pretty flowers. They're silk. They're not fresh. And silk flowers are some of my favorites because they last forever and they look fantastic. And when you get your April kit, you're going to have some simple tools and some clay plus 9 other projects. When you get your clay, if you have any paper around the house, you're going to take a piece of paper about yay big, and you're going to squish it up and make an armature. And if you don't have this kind of paper, you can use any other kind of paper and just squish it together and make it soft. So we will begin. What you'll do is you'll put your bit of clay in some sort of a ball, and using dry hands, you're going to use your thumb and push into the center about almost all the way to the end, and then you're going to squeeze it around and around with this shape, this kind of pressure, kind of like a claw, around and around and around, and we call this a pinch pot. And as you make your pinch pot, I'm going to change hands so you can see it better. As we make our pinch pot, you're actually in a uniformed way creating a hole in the center. Once you've created this hole and it's uniform, you're going to take your balled up paper, your armature, and you're going to put that down in the center, and then you're going to continue to build it so the walls are coming up. And now this time I'm using pushing and pulling together. And as I'm pushing and pulling together, your figure, your vase, is getting elongated. Do you see that? Now, because I have dry hands, the clay isn't overly wet, and it's got some good movement. And at this point, I'm going to do what's known as choking, where I bring my fingers in, and I'm going around and around. And don't worry about the shape. The shape will create itself as you go along. And at this point, I have now an elongated neck and a little bit of a round belly. And that's fine too. And I'm going to squeeze it around and around. I'm not in a hurry. The key here is that you are uniform with your grip. I'm not using too much pressure. I'm not using too little pressure. And one of the things I like to do is pat it down to make sure that it's got a good bottom, a nice bottom, a nice bottom, a nice bottom. All right. I might also roll it here on its edges so that I have a nice shape. Originally, when we did this project back in February, some of you may remember this project, we were talking about having your vase of flowers look similar to a pear. And they don't look like pears now, but it's that same bulbous shape at the bottom. And then I like to go elongated. Now make sure that you don't lose that hole so that flowers can fit in. And just a word about this. You can, in fact, use this for real flowers, but I think it's kind of neat to use silk flowers because there's something about a silk flower. It never dies. It's super pretty. It brightens up a room. I mean, come on. Look at this. Isn't this so pretty? Don't you just want to keep this in your house forever? Okay, so back to your piece. So by now, you should have a nice smooth vase, and at this point I'm going to take the tools that you'll have in your kit. This is a good smoother, but my favorite are my fingers, And on this one, I'm going to write my name on the bottom so that when you send it in to us or bring it and put it on our front porch, we know whose is whose. And I'm going to put my whole first name and I'm going to put my last initial. You might also want to put a couple of air holes if your bottom is too thick. Okay? Hope that makes sense to you. I also like to add some design elements. So over here, I have some holes, and I also, on this side, added some marks. I don't know if you can see those marks. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the blunt side of this, and I'm going to make some holes. I'm not going to make even holes because I think it's more interesting to have something that is, I don't know, just a little whimsical. I don't know if you can see those designs, but it's very interesting to the eye. One thing I like to do too is work in threes. So instead of having things be totally organized, I like to have things be, threes and fives. I think that's the Fibonacci sequence too. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the outside. I'm going to come in right now and I'm going to work on turning those into holes so it looks good on both sides. When it dries a little, I'm going to come back in and brush those off. Okay, so let's pretend this is nice and dry. Maybe the next day I want you to come in and I want you to paint this. You'll be given 2 glazes, and maybe we'll give you 3 glazes to mix and match and do more colors. But don't paint the bottom, but go ahead and give one solid coat. And in this case, I used darker color first. When it dried, I came back and I used dry brushing. And so you're going to see how that's drying very, very fast on this clay piece. You only need 1 coat. And what we're painting this with is called underglaze. And underglaze, most of you remember from Miss Magda's class, the first ingredient on an underglaze is clay. It's clay, pigment, and water. Why is that important? Well, it's important because if you apply it too thick, then any little tiny detail that you have made will get lost in the painting. Does that make sense? Okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, picture this. If I covered this hole with too much glaze or underglaze, let's just say I really put it entirely in there, okay? See that? Well, I did a bad job, but now I'm doing a better job. Okay. Okay, so if I left it like this without going back in and bringing out the hole, when this is fired, it's going to stay like that. But if this were the regular glaze that has some movement during firing, then that wouldn't happen. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and paint this, and then you're going to return it to us on the front porch. Make sure you leave a little, hey, my name's John. It's okay to put it on the porch just with your name on the bottom, but it would help us out if you put a little note too, or send us a little message. And then once we have it from you, give us about a week and we'll get it fired and returned to you. Hopefully we'll get it back to you by the first class in May. Won't that be fun? Okay, well that's what that looks like. And from here to here to here. All right, very exciting. Have a good day.